Hey, I'm Karai. Like some Viktor content, some middling content? Consider subscribing, maybe even hitting that like button. It'll help me up a lot. And if you do, you'll get blue buff. Viktor Challenger. The only rule, I can only play Viktor. Unless it's banned, then we're playing Orianna. No Viktor jungle, no Viktor support, maybe Viktor Bali, and that's about it.
Hey there, this is a Diamond 3, Diamond 2 elo game against a Singed mid, and as you can see, when playing against a Singed mid, you have to be wary that most of the time they can do the level 1 cheese where they buy boots and run Predator into your team and get a cheesy level 1 kill. If you're the victim in this kind of scenario, it's better to just not flash or wait until he flings and flash over a wall. That said, I still think that if you're caught, just don't flash at all, save it, and just take the L, because it'll be better to use your flash later on where you can actually escape. I think that Singed mid is really strong these days, mainly because of several buffs to his main items, as well as the durability patch that obviously helps him a lot here. But I think there are ways that you can counter him, especially as Viktor, although I think a lot of people think that there's not a lot of things you can do against him as Viktor. Usually I go for Aerie just so I can harass my laner much harder, but in this case, Singed mids, you will usually just ignore me and push in the wave to try and go for a roam here, so I figured there's really no point in taking Aerie to quote-unquote win my lane harder. I take first strike in this case, so when he is in lane, I'm able to make money off him and scale into my items harder. Another core but simple strength of Singed is that he can run up to any champion that doesn't have a reliable dash or crowd control, such as Viktor. But the way I counter this is I just put my gravity field on top of myself, so in the case where he does want to fling me, he has to walk through the entire gravity field to get me. A small but important tip is that when you're ahead in resources, you want to try to deny the enemy cannon. Singed had the base since he was low, so I held a really long freeze against him, but as you can see, he based and instantly went to bot. I think in hindsight, I should have actually pushed this wave with my ult and E, since the wave will bounce back to me anyways, instead of trying to base and hold a freeze here. In addition to the fact that he died, I should have pushed the wave even more, since that no one will actually be able to take the wave. You could see that I returned and I actually had my cannon died before his, so he actually got the cannon EXP. Right here, my team just took Drake and Singed is already ignoring me and going to the fight. Luckily, I had a Nilly support who actually won us this little skirmish here. I think some people might have roamed instantly instead of pushing the wave, but I think it's much better to push in the wave and then roam, because ultimately if you push in the wave will bounce back to you and you're guaranteed to deny that big wave. Of course it's case by case, but I like consistency more than I like exceptions. After Singed returned to lane, he immediately predatored and ran towards me. But as you can see here, he's actually 2 levels behind me, so it's really rare that he actually gets a kill here. In fact, in hindsight, I probably should have just exhausted and killed him instead of burning my flash. But even then, I shouldn't really have burned my flash just to try to kill him, as I believe when I'm ahead, I shouldn't really waste resources just to get people who are behind. Right here, I'm in a very favorable position here, but I don't try to rush my lead here because I don't know where Gwen is. And I don't want to trade 1 for 1 had I played aggressive and Gwen ganked me, because I don't think it's worth it to trade Singed's life against mine, because I think mine is worth much more. And generally, I think if you're ahead, I don't think it's worth it to trade 1 for 1. I see Singed heading topside, so I figured that Gwen is probably doing Herald. I knew that me and Mordekaiser are pretty healthy and pretty strong at this point, so I knew that we could contest this Herald here. Yo makes a great escape with the ult across the wall. I thought the fight was over, but apparently Kled didn't think so and takes a really terrible ult here. As you can see, I don't think Kled is any match for Mordekaiser. It's not even close really. And taking this unfavorable, even if Nilly wasn't here, taking this unfavorable 3v3 cost Kled's team greatly. And because of this, we were able to get a big lead from the Herald onto the mid turret. Shortly after that fight, I tried to base, but Singed thinks he can kill me here. But if I'm 2 levels ahead, I don't think he was ever going to kill me, even through Ignite. But the main point I want to bring here is that you should never base with more than 2 grand in your pocket. you want to base, especially if you can get an item just to push your lead further. I think the reason why I didn't base was I was being really greedy, and I figured that since Singe is really behind, I could try to abuse this fact even more. One more thing is that if you guys are playing Singe, you really shouldn't be forcing flash like that for gold or shutdown gold and experience. You want to try to use your flash in bigger team fights so you can get more out of it instead of just a shutdown gold and experience. I think even if he killed me, it's pretty good, but I think a better reason to use it is through dragon fights or even small skirmishes, because the difference between a Singe with no flash and a Singe with flash, their threat levels are drastically different. Imagine if Singe still had flash and was slightly closer along with Gwen. This potential dragon fight might have been a bit harder, but obviously in this case there was no fight at all, so we just took dragon for free. Ezreal, we saw Ezreal on a really terrible base, so we just went down there to collect 300 gold. At this point, I knew the game was pretty much secured, and the only way for us to lose it was that I would run it down and int. So I try my best to avoid that and only take really guaranteed plays. The mentality that I'm trying to adopt here is that if I'm ahead, I should just take really good percentage plays instead of trying to make unga bunga plays. Right here you can see the Singe actually tries to 1v1 me, but I don't think there's any world where he actually gets a kill on me. But the thing I want to point out is that if you're the Singe, you really don't want to make these kind of plays. You want to be saving your flash for bigger plays in the future, just for a comeback chance. So in this next play, it is a really small but important detail. I see that 3 of the enemy are dead, and I knew that Kled and Gwen are topside killing my Mordekaiser, so I knew this turret, I can take down this turret uncontested here. I didn't care as much during this game because I knew I was already this ahead, but in some games, you want to avoid sharing gold if you can, so you know, in other games maybe I could have pinged it nearly away. And this applies to any turret, or well, to most turrets, because you know, you want to get as much solo gold as you can, just so you could snowball much harder. Right here, Singe really shouldn't be pushing up this far, even though it's really close to his base, but he doesn't have wards to allow him to walk this far up. This is a fight, I believe. We don't have Baron here, but I don't think my team should have went in like this, especially when we don't have that big of a minion wave. I did a misplay because I didn't take my blue pot here, so we actually couldn't get the turret before we went in for the dove. I think if I actually had taken my blue pot, I was able to get the turret faster. It's not a terrible play, but again, it's one of those times when you're this ahead, you don't want to be making these small little mistakes just so your enemy have a chance to come back. Right here, I think Singe actually dies to Nilly in mid lane. I don't think we're able to end here because the respawn timers are still a bit quick. We were able to get the tier 2 or one of the Nexus turrets. Some of you might think that we were able to rush it down, but honestly, we shouldn't really even contest for the Nexus turrets and just base for the sake of tempo. You can get base and you can get on the map much faster and get more objectives such as Baron or Dragon. Right here, it's nothing special, just Baron getting taken by us just so we can close the game much easier here. We used the set Baron that we took just to try to push it in, and as you can see here, Singe makes a... Again, I can understand that the Singe is probably tilted, but if you're level-headed, you really shouldn't be making these kind of plays where you're walking up to a wave that's pushing into your base anyways. There's always a chance to come back, so you should try to play games as slow as you can. But that being said, if you're ahead, you can take your fights as slow as you can because the enemy doesn't have that much cards to play in their hand. It's much better to secure games slowly than to rush and potentially give comeback opportunities for the enemy. And that's one of the ways I play against a Singe, and once again, slowly secure a win. I hope you guys learned something, and I'll see you in the next video.